From Farrington? No, I was, as a matter of fact, that's what I'm looking for, that land. You got one?
I
already have one, I love it.
Darn it.
I like to look at that back when the shorter windscreen on it. The windscreen that's on it now, it's got too high, I just barely see it. But I would like to have something that come out and cover the I always wear gloves.
I like the note on there, that red one.
I thought you got to look at that way carrying, or yeah, that way carrying on.
Nobody says anything right,
Down here, parents' house. Kids and adults. Let them take it.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vaughn,
Here.
Kurtz,
Here.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill, Sharp,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
You. I'm gonna make a little change in our agenda before you approve it. Since Todd is here and he'll have to do a report, rather than making him stay for the whole meeting since he's on the clock, thought I'd save some money and let him talk, right before our petition from the public. So if you wanna approve it with that bit of a change.
So moved. Second.
Motion by McLaughlin, second by Sharp. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Two names. Public forum, this is the time set aside for visitors and public comments only on topics of city business other than those listed on tonight's agenda. Please understand the council cannot take any action on your comments at this meeting due to requirements of the open meeting law, but may do so at a future meeting. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 5 minutes to state their comments, and we thank you for your cooperation. Nobody put down what their topic was, so I'm not sure what you're speaking to. First one is Leah Cooey, is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah.
Would you like to step forward and give us your name? Are you from East Buchanan?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're here from school?
Yeah.
Oh,
So I'm always gonna ask questions afterwards.
okay, do you wanna do that at the end of the meeting? Usually they sit through the meeting and then ask questions afterwards and get signatures on your paper?
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't need to sign in, but that's all right.
It works.
Good experience. I'm assuming, okay, and the other one was Kim Clark? That's oh, okay, sorry, I'm trying to brush this through. Understood. So you're gonna bow or wait until the end for yours, and then Kim Clark, you don't have down a topic either.
I didn't wanna come in front of everybody, but bear with me.
Just state your name and address, and then let us know.
I'm Kim Clark. I live at 605 6th Avenue Northeast in Athens, Iowa.
Okay?
I'm here because on 6th Avenue and 6th Street Northeast by the Lutheran Church, we have had 2 accidents, not even a week apart. And so what we would like is some of our neighbors and even the people that were in the accidents would like to maybe get 4-way stop there or something, because there's nothing there. And the people fly down first car accident. There's nothing there to say who gets the right of way, who doesn't.
Is that on the north side of
So
the church?
whereabouts on
We're on the
6th Ave?
north side of Lutheran Church parking lot.
Okay,
So if Lutheran Church is like this, and there's a parking lot here, and then you got the parking lot on the side, we're on this side.
so where exactly was both accidents in front of your house, at an intersection, where?
One house up from me is where the intersection is. It's an intersection right there where Sixth Avenue is like this, and Sixth Street goes like this. It's actually opposite of what I'm saying.
Corner 6 and 6.
Is it busier because of the construction?
It's always, I've lived there 12 years, and this is not the first, this is the first within, a week where we've had 2 accidents. The first one was a T-bone, the person that hit the other person, there wasn't much damage. Now tonight, the second one happened tonight. It was a bigger deal, where we had to have both ambulance come out. Both women had the mark from the seatbelt, and then right in here was bruised instantly.
Talking the northeast corner of the church property.
Yes, yes.
Long as four-way stop.
Yes, a block up, it is 4-way stop, so right at the corner of the church, from the church all the way down by, it's a T intersection to go, I think it's 8th Street.
8th Street.
Yeah, so they're free reign to fly, and they do. They come off of 150 and go on, from the west, and go on 6th Street, 6th Street, and they fly over that intersection. We've called the cops, there's nothing they can do without seeing it. It's just become very hazardous. I have a 14-year-old that's in driver's ed right now. I make her stop, and there is no stop sign. And we peek around the corner to see.
There are several intersections on Independence that do not have any markings on a.
They're very hazardous. Us as adults, we know kind of what to look for. I'm in my 40s and I didn't even know, who has the right of way. I don't know if you were there tonight, but I asked one of the policemen, hey, who has the right of way? Whoever's to the right. I don't wanna come up here and say, okay, now my child's been very seriously hurt in this, in this intersection. I don't want to be your grandchild, you know what I'm saying? And I know you can't fix every corner in town, I understand this. But there were a couple neighbors that didn't come, that would like to see a 4-way stop sign put in,
You said you've lived there how long?
12 years.
And this is the first time you've had accidents at that intersection?
No, I haven't always seen them.
Okay.
This one is, I have 2 older children that drive, and I tell them the same thing. But this is more consistent, it's getting more and more consistent.
All right, thank you very much for coming, appreciate it.
Thanks, Kim.
Okay, next on the agenda. Motion to accept and approve the consent agenda that approves the following minutes of the September 9th, 2019 regular meeting. Disposal of department surplus items and equipment. Casey's Class E liquor license and Class B wine permit for a 12-month term. Hardy Drug Company, Class B wine permit, Class C beer permit, carry out beer, Class E and Sunday sales liquor license, November 12th, 2019, through November 11th, 2020.
So moved.
Motion by Sharf.
Second.
I just have a question.
Second by Hoffman.
Is that horse collar an antique on the list?
What?
Is the horse collar an antique on the list?
Sure.
Okay, I do have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any other questions, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried.
I got a question about that. How big a party was that over the bills for Parks and Recs? $1,071, and why wasn't I invited?
Well, you were invited, that went to the complex, they bought pizzas to sell at the complex.
Well, that'd be a lot of pizzas.
They have a lot of people.
Okay.
Generally, that's what they do for larger tournaments and what have you, for hot food, they order it from Bill's and resell it at the complex. Bill gives them, I think, a reasonable price on it, but it's for their concessions.
Okay.
It's a good moneymaker.
I make the motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion by Kurt, second by Hill. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Todd, I'm gonna let you go ahead and come up now and give your report.
Hello, everyone. Got a little something for everyone here. You all know how to read, so I'm just gonna do some highlights. Yeah. Okay, I need one then. All right. Just wanted to play catch up. Haven't done this for quite some time, so. As far as code enforcement goes, I'm not gonna say any names, but I do wanna mention some addresses. As you can see, a lot of these we're kinda dealing with bigger issues, so cars, vehicles, trailers, and then the biggest ones right now is we've had a couple houses already torn down, a couple garages already taken down. And these are beyond repair, so getting these dilapidated places off the streets. I mean, as far as, they're dangerous is what they are. I've noticed that it's not quite as easy to get them done as fast as the neighbors like them done, but with Lynch Dallas, it's fantastic. Everything goes very smoothly. So we're getting a good rhythm going, and we're getting quite a few places taken care of. Another big place, as you can see, we've been working with the Malik. The exterior's starting to look a little better. We're still working on the inside, and we're in constant contact with them over there. So. Another thing would be Tyson. So I've been working with Tyson since day one. We all know it smells. So far, they've already in the sludge room. That's what they call it, the sludge room. They've already added this. It's a chemical additive for the odor, and they can manipulate that parts per million to make it not as pungent. So they did that. They added the 2 inline carbon filters as I asked, and then they used to do these 55-gallon drums of carbon. There's 2 of those. They used to do it every 5 to 10 years. Now they're doing that every year, so that should help as well. So that's on the nuisance ones. I get calls all the time, but I have to just take it basically like a triage, start from the worst. Some of these, one of them hadn't had utility since 2009, and that's already in the attorney's hands, so that one will be taken care of. One of them, it was a house that was supposed to be taken down, and we actually was able to find an owner to take that property, and so no more litigations, no more work for the city. The new owner made some money, and the old owner made some money. So we're doing good there. As far as other things that's been going on, floodplains. So I did this community rating system, basically an audit. I talked about it once before. We did great. Independence did great. We go above and beyond. There are some things in the future we're going to want to change and adopt from the DNR to get this, but by doing this community rating system, we'll be able to lower the premium of every floodplain insurance policyholder in town. So all at once. So, and also on the lines of floodplain, you've probably seen quite a bit of dirt being hauled over to the old high school. You've probably seen it over in that RV. So what we were doing is I was able to get in contact with Casey's as well as Skogman, and we are getting all of their fill, and that was all free to us. They're hauling it. They actually scratch topsoil, They're hauling it all, and just the fill itself would be roughly between 125 to 170,000 altogether. And then on top of the transportation, everything on top of that. So we like free. Free's good.
What are you, with this filling in with this dirt, what are you accomplishing with filling it in?
So if you go to the next page, there's a picture. Yeah, the blue. So the blue areas, the one on the left side of the page was a really low spot. So that was filled in to make it easier for Parks and Rec to mow that area. The other one, we're just building a shelf off of there for maybe possible future development, or this year I want to make it into a very good sledding hill instead of just the one area that's always just, you know, you get 50 feet. I want to be able to sled that whole hill. So we got 25 years to fill this thing up, so might as well make it purposeful now. So we'll just keep on taking whatever. Been working with DNR, had to get permitting. Right now it's just a temporary fill site, but working with two of the DNR, they're totally fine with it as long as they're very stringent on what they want in there, so we're following every step. Yeah, I don't want to get into DNR. Let's see, and then a few things I want to talk about in the future. We've had some good talks about the sidewalk project, some of the issues that we've had, and how to make it better. Other things I came across, limits on vehicles. So this is stuff I want you guys to think about. Limits on vehicles, limits on number of pets, feral cats. So we have 3 areas in town that I'm getting calls about multiple cats in these areas. And what I've heard is most of the Humane Society vets, they're full right now, so we might have to come up with a game plan, because we're talking quite a few. Something else in the future, canning cans in the city terrace. You see some people planting stuff outside there. Milkweed, roses, whatever it might be, we need to talk about what is acceptable. Tree dump camera, we haven't had any issues lately, but so far, since I've been here, there's 2 people that have dumped. One was about 250 pounds of garbage. The other one was some carpet and stuff, so that's something to think about. And then also, and this is just sometime down the line, credit card payments for permitting. So be able to do all your permitting online. Just pay for it, you know, and I can do it all via email or whatever it may be.
Change our software for that?
I don't think it's a software issue as much as it is an accounting issue, and then there's also a service fee that has to be passed on as a convenience fee, because we're not allowed to take that off of the cost, because then they get a lower price permit, if you will, than the person that pays cash. So there's some nuances that go with that. It's not unheard of, but there are some things that have to be covered.
With something like that could also be used for parking fees, a van or dogs running at large fees for pipestone and stuff in our office, if it can be worked up in the same system.
Parks and Rec can use it all over. I mean, that might be something that I think we could be very lucrative. And then the last part, so we have pots going on, $20 million in construction going on right now, and I just have another $1 million project that I'm permitting tomorrow. So that'd be 21 million in valuation, and right now we're seeing $23,000 in permits since January. And so if you go to the next pages, it kind of shows you where we're at since January, and then back just a couple years. So just kind of give you an update. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to call me.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, thank you guys.
Great job.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh.
Hey, thank you. You know what? Let me ask first.
Okay, next is a petition from the public, is for special event number 3. Want me to read this whole motion? Motion to approve the Independence Chamber of Commerce 2019 downtown Trenton Street, Thursday, October 31st, 2019, from 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m., and to waive compliance with City Independence codes as follows. Chapter 60, Administration of Traffic Code, Section 60.08, parades, to assemble on the city hall property to receive trick-or-treat items under 136 sidewalk regulations, section 136.7, organized display items for display that interfere with free and uninterrupted passage of pedestrians on the sidewalk. Mouthful.
I'd make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Hold on, one second.
Yeah,
Motion
I have
by
a cons-
John,
I
second
have a
by
concern
Al,
with
but we
this.
do have some discussion.
This year, trick or treating, they decided to follow what Jingle on Main is, with actually shutting down Second Avenue Northeast and across the bridge, which we have not done in the past. Shutting the streets down at 3:30 on
We
a
can move
school
that
day
time.
is a concern for mine. I mean, if you shut the roads down at 3:30, school traffic is an issue. So my concern and a compromise to this is if we can have everything ready to be shut down at that time, but then let myself or one of my other officers see how traffic is going, and if we can shut it down, the sooner we can shut it down, we can, but at least it'll be shut down by 4.
I think we could do, I actually took a look at last year's after I submitted this,
Mhm.
and we only did it 15 minutes before, so,
Okay.
I mean, even at 3:45, so if we can. There's just so many kids, there's like 1,000 kids that come down there, and then their families, and I've seen, having the studio on the corner, on First and Second, I've seen cars that have, they're rolling down their windows, yelling at the kids, telling them, and it's just, I know it's a lot to get that section off, like from the bridge or whatever, but at some point, there's going to be, I feel it's a safety issue,
And
so,
I'm in favor of shutting down the
Yes.
bridge and shutting down Second Avenue just at 3:30 is concerning.
yeah,
Like I said, if it's all right with you guys, let's work together. As soon as we feel it's comfortable that we can actually shut the roads down, we'll shut them down as soon as we can, as long as we can get most of that school traffic out. Because you got people with school permits, school buses that are trying to make their way home, and if we shut it down too early, now we're throwing people with school permits off their normal route to find another way home. We're hoping that construction's all done and out of the way by then, so they can make their way around, but still, it's gonna shut everybody down to Second Street, across the bridge and so forth, so that's my concern. So, as long as I say, if we can work together on that, then I have no problem.
We've ever had a year where they can find a alternative way, I would think this year's it.
right? They're kind of used to these roadblocks,
Got a lot of
right?
practice now, so that's the only concern I have with it.
And it's one day, it's not 4 months or a whole summer or.
Yes, yep.
Until next June, so.
And you think that's workable for you guys too, for them just to close it down as soon as they feel rather than
Yeah,
Saturday after?
I think so, because I think people kind of really know that, I don't know how many years it's been, 18th annual, people know that on the 31st that, Main Street gets shut down for trick or treat, so I think,
The only thing is the difference on First Street and Second Avenue. But
Yeah.
that's the same as Jingle on Main, so.
yeah.
Do you think we could have it closed down, Dustin, by 3:45?
Definitely try. I said we've shut it down roughly about that time in the past. So, yeah, I think we can watch the traffic go through. Usually we don't shut down First Street or Second Avenue. We just shut down First Street for the 2 blocks. So people are still able to cross and go up Second Avenue. Well, shutting it all down is gonna throw a little bit more of a wrench in it, but I'd say if we look at the traffic and see what we have, if we can safely do it, we'll shut it down as quickly as we can. At least be shut down by 4 o'clock for sure.
Are there that many people that we really need the extra space for?
Trick or treating downtown, people come from Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Cedar Rapids, all over the place. to
I
come
know a couple that
trick-or-treating here.
loads up all their grandkids and comes from Gilbertville,
Yes.
and they come.
It is lined up on both sides of the street, up and down throughout.
It's like a big herd
Yeah,
of
I
cattle,
did
at
notice
least
that.
1,000 kids.
Oh,
Do
easily.
we have some businesses that aren't right downtown that
So we
come
do.
and set up a booth to give out tricks or
We do,
treats?
so we have,
Things of that nature.
businesses that come down Main Street and set up. Last year, we tried to get them in that loop where Hardig Drug, you can cross the street and then go up. But people set up, Gail Hunter just told me they set up along here, so they're still crossing over 150, which obviously we can't do anything about that. But, I know like Cindy Chung, she sets up, Color Divine, they set up, so, and we tried to move them up last year, and we're just trying to get more people to do it this year, so.
And with shutting down Second Avenue and First Street, they can actually be in the road of Second Avenue and First Street when the road's shut down. So it gives more space for them to do something.
Yeah.
I think it's worth giving it a shot this year, shutting those down, to see how it goes.
If
Well,
it doesn't,
we do this for the Jingle on Main, so
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
the first time we've ever tried those.
Correct, the only thing different is Jingle on Main usually 5, 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
and This was right after school, that's the only concern I
yeah,
have.
Trouble is, we start at 4, and if it's like regular trick or treating, then we start.
well, we had
Probably a
discussed, we
half hour.
thought it was 4:30 to 6, and then I found out that it was 4 to 6, or 4 to 5:30, so I texted them to let them know, but I had already, put the time on here, so.
Like I said, I'll look at it, and as I said, as soon as I can shut it down, I'll have to shut it down, so make sure everybody's safe. So.
So everybody understand what they're voting on?
We're shutting the
Roll
city
call.
down.
Bird,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Shar,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Thank you, your motion is carried.
Thank you.
Stay there, right there.
Yeah.
That's our next item. Is a motion to approve the Independence Chamber of Commerce 2019 Jingle on Main for Friday, December 6, 2019, from 10 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock midnight, and to waive compliance with City of Independence codes as follows. Chapter 40, Public Peace Section 40.032 in parentheses, noise to allow noise up to 8 p.m. on November 30th, 2017. Is that correct?
oh, sorry, that's what last year.
Okay, anything else changing? Your chapter 69, parking regulations, section 69.06, parking prohibited, and section 69.08, parking zones for closing and restricting traffic and no parking zones. Chapter 122, peddler, solicitor, and transient merchants section, 122.04, application fee section, 122.05, license fee section, 122.06, bond required with assigned liability waiver, section 122.10, and time restrictions to 8 p.m.
So moved.
Motion by Hill, second by O'Loughlin. Any discussion on this?
And why are we starting at 10 o'clock in the morning?
Well, we'll have a lot more set up, like last year we started about, was it noon that we started setting up the stage? So we're hoping to add, we're not gonna have the live music on the big stage like we did last year, we're actually going to, we've had a lot of, input from adults that don't have kids at home that kinda want something that might be, adults can come down and do too, so we're gonna have, on Second Avenue and Third Avenue, Second Avenue is gonna be like a kid zone, family zone, and Third Avenue, we're actually going to have music. I talked to Dustin about this already. We're going to bring in someone that, runs, it's called the Whimsical Wine Trailer, and they actually come in, they set up, they get their own alcohol license, all that kind of stuff. And they serve Iowa craft beers, they serve Iowa wines, they do like, like a holiday sangria type of thing. And we're gonna have somebody playing like, acoustical music up in the adult area, maybe some bags, just some stuff so adults can come down. Also try to make it more of a, something for all ages. So there's a little more setup in some of the things that we'd like to do. We're adding we're having a custom built Santa cottage. We have a lot of extra stuff. And I'm hoping, last year, we worked from like the time we shut down until 11 o'clock, I think. We're pulling the stage off at 11. I didn't even get to go home and take a shower because we had so few volunteers. So we're hoping to open it up a little more, but I think we need a little more time. So I do not wanna be here until midnight. I just put midnight as a time, hoping that I'd like to be home at 8:05, but I know that's not gonna be an option, so, yeah.
Have we always started at 10 o'clock in the morning?
Last year it was noon. So we're asking to add a little more things, like we're going to have to, like, block off Third Avenue, obviously, because, that's gonna have to be fenced in, because there's a possibility that the Whimsical Wine Trailer will be coming. We'll be setting up games and stuff on Second Avenue. On Main Street probably won't have as much because we have our kiddie train there, we have, that's where the, horse and carriages are. So we'll have 2 of those this year, but a lot on the side streets. We're hoping to have a lot of extra there. It's a big undertaking. More decoration, we've asked for a lot more decoration in the downtown
last year it was first year they brought the stage out, had the live music out. Shutting down at noon did cause a little bit of disruption with traffic. Wasn't terrible, but people knew that it was coming and knew that we were shutting down the road.
Good thing about this day, no school.
Yeah, that's the thing,
There's
there's no
no
school.
school.
So, I mean, it makes it so, yeah, people are still gonna be out and about, but the kids should be at home. We'll have to figure out a different way to get home from work if that's the normal route. But shutting it down that early, I mean, working with Nikki, if we see, okay, maybe it doesn't need to shut down yet because people aren't ready, leave it open for a little bit, and when they're ready, we'll shut it down. So I'll have officers working so they can help me out, we just gotta give them a call on the radio and have them come help me shut the streets down. So, I know it says 10 a.m. to shut it down, but if it's not ready to be shut down at that time, we'll, as long as we're okay with it,
Yeah.
leave it open until we're absolutely ready, okay, now we need to shut it down to get stuff in the street.
I did put in here, I don't know if you guys saw it, we did the, you know, the carriage ride goes through by the mill. We would like to be able to set those, the cutouts, those wooden cutouts that we had the character cutouts on Thursday night. I think I put that up there, so I don't know if that's a problem.
Out in the park.
Yeah, in the park, just in the park area.
Rumors Park, you mean, or what?
Veterans
Veterans
Park.
Park.
That shouldn't be an issue, should it?
I have no issues with them being out there, the only concern I'd have would be vandalism.
Right.
That's the only thing. I mean, if you would have a trailer that could put them in and set them out there in the trailer for the time being, then set them out the next morning, try to be easier than if somebody wants to damage one or the other, but that's not mine, so
I mean, if somebody wants to come damage them, it's,
I hope not.
I hope not either.
I can also talk to the officers that are working and say, hey, they're set out, so if you drive down there, just know that they're set out, not somebody in the shadows.
Oh,
So.
yeah, we have an 8-foot, abominable snowman that's been painted, that's sitting, that'll be put out there, so.
So we don't wanna scare our police officers?
No.
They might end up with a couple holes and a little night, so.
Not target practice.
Yeah.
Obstacle course. So, but I'll always let the officers know so that they can drive through and make sure, hopefully deter people from any vandalism.
And you'll have more advertising going out for both Coast Creek and Messy Van, so the public knows what's going on and when and
Yes.
where.
Yep, I just wanted to get this put together before.
How are you advertising, trying to get volunteers, Nikki?
Word of mouth, and, I'll be calling some people saying, hey, you'd make a great volunteer, kind of what we learned at that conference, like.
I'll try to help you out.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we just had a small group of people that did it last year. I'm hoping to break in some more of my daughter's friends, they're freshmen this year, so silver court hours are a huge thing to them and not having school. So, 8 hours of silver court might entice them,
Yeah.
some pizza, so I'm hoping.
And then this is when we also do the lighting of the tree.
Lighting of the
Same
tree,
day.
We're thinking about, we've discussed doing the lighting of the tree when about 6 o'clock, when it's actually kind of dark and more people can be there. We will have, the Fort City Union has they call the Union Carolers, they dress in period clothing and they come and sing, they'll be there singing during the lighting, so we're really trying to step it up and make it a bigger event, so. We have a lot of other towns around us that are doing it on the same evening, so. We tried to get an ice skating rink, a synthetic ice skating rink that he's like, if you would've called me the day before, we could've had it, but, so, yeah. Next year, I already told him to put us on the calendar for next year, so.
We got the
Yeah.
fire department, fire hoses.
No, this is synthetic, they actually come in, set it up, they bring all your skates, and then they take it all down. So, there used to be an ice skating rink down at Teachers Park, right?
Yes, there did.
Yeah.
Not what happened to that.
Yeah.
I think it never froze, it,
2 warmer winters.
2 warm winters for, even try to do it.
Yeah, so,
Nikki, I want to
Sandy
thank,
Hill, too.
I want to thank you for coming in early on these as opposed to waiting to the last minute, so.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier for us to work with you, and I appreciate it.
well, no problem.
She's been great, got ahold of me about them, any questions or concerns, what I would have, so. She's been very easy to work with.
I'll try my best.
Do a good
Thanks.
job.
Thanks.
Everybody, any other questions?
I have a motion by Hill and a second by Laughlin.
Okay, any other questions? Roll call.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Yes.
Kearns?
Yes.
Thank you, motion carried. Good job. Next on the agenda is our annual debt report from Spear Financial. Maggie's here. You did find your way around here to figure out how to get in?
Got here. That is passing out the annual debt report. If you'd like to take one of the paper clips and pass them down, I appreciate that. I'm Maggie with Spear Financial. We come out every year. I remind you to bring you your debt and TIF report. Reason that we do this is your valuation changes on July 1st. You've maybe taken out new debt, you've maybe paid off debt, and we're doing this so that your city clerk and your administrative staff can file and certify the TIF certification that is needed on June, or by December 1st of 2019. So with that being said, we're going to start with your red pages, and this is what outlines your general obligation debt. Page 2, we may be jumping the gun, but we've added in the 2019 debt that we were here today to sell. If you remember, then in the middle of page 2, we give you the total principal and interest. Then that yellow column, those are the dollars that we bring in from TIF revenue. So those are the dollars that we ask for that's going to pay for part of the general obligation debt. And we're having those conversations with administration up front when you go to issue the debt. Were they TIF projects? Are they in a TIF area? What of the bond issue is attributable to TIF? Not all of every bond issue is attributable to TIF. You also bring in some local option sales tax on a couple of yours and some sewer revenue. The very last large column then is what we talk about that you will need to certify to the debt service at the very most when you start your budget process. And oddly, we're not far from your budget process at this point in time. Now, this number is what we're estimating. You may get to budget and decide you're going to use some cash here or some cash there and buy that number down. But that is the number that we're looking at that likely is going to need to be levied in the debt service. So we do then give you on the orange pages, this is your outstanding revenue debt. I remind you that the city has outstanding from 2018, we did some sewer refunding bonds, and that was, the refunding was done to get a lower interest rate. That interest rate is at a 3.478%, and it does become callable in June of 2021. We've drawn an underline under that principal amount. So that means that if interest rates are lower at that time, you may be able to refinance again. You also could at that time pay off the bonds in full or in part if you had cash ahead to do that. The next schedule over is your 2019 schedule, and this again is another sewer improvement bond. This is your 2019. The estimate from the state revolving fund is that it's $1,565,000. That's what we submitted the application for. But at the very bottom in very small print, it says drawn to date is $606,000. So we want to put a placeholder in at the $1,565,000, thinking that's what you could draw up to. But right now you're only partially through the project. So this is kind of where we stand today. When we update this report next year, likely the project will be completed and we'll have a final debt service schedule in here from that. So I want to point out the very last column, or the very last large column, there are no property taxes levied for either of these debts because they are debts of the utility. So they are paid directly with sewer revenues, both of them.
Maybe.
Yes.
On that 2019 preliminary, is that principal or debt service based on the 600,000 to date or on the 1.5?
It's based on the 1.5 million. Correct. It is based on the 1.5 million, and it does show that you'll have a payment in June of 2020. And if you do complete the project and pay all of the bills and close the project out by May of 2020, you will have a principal and interest payment that will be due. So, very good question. Going on to your purple pages, this is where we outline any TIF rebate agreements that you have. So I remind everybody a rebate agreement is an agreement that you've entered into with the developer that that developer is going to improve area in your TIF property, whether that's building a new building, building homes, whatever that may look like. They're going to improve the value. They're gonna build something over and above the base value. You then are going to rebate them back at a certain percentage for a certain amount of time, a certain portion of their taxes or their new taxes. So we go on, and this does go on for a couple, 3 pages. We've worked very closely with Gina and Susie in your office to make sure that we have all of these documented and that we've noted down at the bottom of each of these columns, at the bottoms of each of them, how much has been paid to date. Some are new and have not paid anything out. Some will be paying out for the first time this fiscal year, December and May, or December and the June time frame. But these do go on, and they're scattered throughout. We've tried to make them known, and we've left the housing rebate agreements to the end of page 2 and all of page 3 and a little into page 4. So we wanted to, those are a little different because, as you remember from your rebate agreements, those have low to moderate income set aside, meaning that if you're going to rebate to a developer for infrastructure costs, which is what you're doing, water and sewer, streets, you have to set aside low to moderate income dollars if the houses will be sold at market rates. And so we have to identify that 60.79% is what the developer can receive in a rebate, and 39.21% based on the Buchanan County LMI rate is what you have to set aside in that low to moderate income set aside. So these do go on for, like I said, 3 to 4 pages here, and all the information at the end of page 4 is what then we will use as we go through our yellow pages and our blue pages to identify how many dollars need to be collected for those rebate agreements. I do want to state that you guys 5-6 years ago went into a system and put together a really great spreadsheet, your administration did, on tracking these rebate agreements. And I have asked permission, and we have shown that tracking to other cities that we work with because it's such a very good system. So I want to applaud you on that. It's a really great system. It's a really great way of tracking and knowing exactly what's going on in those agreements. So then we go on to our yellow pages, and this is off of those red pages, off of the original general obligation debt. These are the items that we're going to abate with TIF. So 2009 was street improvements, and it was all urban renewal. Part of 2016 and part of 2017, and then again part of the 2019, that's on your agenda next, is to be paid back with TIF. Page 2, the first column says this is the amount that we're going to transfer from the TIF to the general debt service, so meaning this is what we'll buy down the property tax levy with. Then we bring in all of that, those purple pages that we just talked about, we bring those in. You have a forgivable loan, 2 forgivable loans there then listed, and those are 80% forgivable, so you do have to collect those, because if you're gonna forgive them, someone has to pay them, and that's gonna be you through collections. And then we've got the total TIF property taxes, so we've drawn a line there, an arrow to 21, because that is what your administration will be levying in the TIF district by December 1st of this year. So also you may see that number on your reports. It may come in a little higher than that. We typically ask that your administration will over levy, because if someone does not pay their taxes who is in your TIF district, you may not get all of the dollars that you need to service. So we always do state that it's better to ask for a little bit more, and then that is just money that you'll use at the end to pay some of the final payments if you have a cash balance. So, okay. Then the last couple of items that we have are our green pages, and if I can have you look at column number 2, and we'll read straight down this column. This talks about our debt capacity. And so column number 2 in fiscal year 20, you had actual property valuation of $356 million. That constitutes to 5%, which is your debt capacity, is $17,807,000, and that means you can issue general obligation debt up to that level. Today, you have outstanding $9,265,000 in debt. You've got some appropriation rebates and some non-appropriation rebates that we talked about on our purple pages. You're going to pay back debt this year of $1,245,000, the principal amount. And you're gonna pay back some non-appropriation and the appropriation debt, or the rebates. And tonight, you're considering adding $1,650,000 of principal in a bond issue. This would leave you remaining debt capacity that's not obligated of $8,130,146, or about 45% of your debt capacity. We also take off 20% right at the top. That's kind of a contingency. We say you never should issue more than 80% of your debt capacity, just in case you need some. That amount comes right off that 17 million at the top. So if we deduct 3.5 million, that still leaves you with about 4,568,000. I'm not telling you to go out and borrow this. Al and Gina know that I'm not telling you to go out and borrow this, but I'm telling you that comfortably you're sitting really where we thought you would be. And I also want to point out that the city did grow at 1.985% last year in actual valuation, and that is a very healthy growth rate that we have seen in these reports. And so again, that added growth rate, you paying back a large amount of debt is what is keeping that debt capacity very fluid for you. The one thing that the city does is you keep your debt fairly short. You do not put debt out there for 20 years, you're putting your debt out there for 10 to 12 years when you're talking about capital improvement projects, which is very important. So this goes on for a couple of pages, and then we get to our last pages, which are our blue pages, and this is where we talk actually about the growth in the TIF district. So this is if your desks that you're sitting at is your base value or the original area of the TIF district. Anything that grows over and above that, that's increment. And that's what TIF is based on, and these blue pages show us increment in your TIF district. So we look at column number 2, again, giving 1 year of history, and you have commercial incremental value of $24,276,088. We take rollback on everything. You have industrial increment of $7,173,000. There's no personal property or ag increment in your TIF district. You have residential growth over and above the base of $32,778,000 and multi-residential of about $1,700,000. At the TIF tax rate, that gives you $1,657,740 that you could collect in receipts. You are collecting approximately $598,000 for debt service purposes on your GO bonds. You're collecting about $110,000 in rebates that you're making. And then you've got that low to moderate income set aside as well of about $31,996. You can see column number 3, you will also collect that kind of area that's blank there. If you move one column over, that's where you will start to collect on those forgivable loans as well. So you are not using out of the 1.657, $916,000. That's what's being turned back over. And when I say turned back over, it's not actual dollars, it's the valuation that makes up those dollars. And that valuation is not only flowing back into your budget, but it's flowing back into the city, the county's budget and the school district's budget as well. So that just means that you're not using everything. We wouldn't recommend that you go use everything. You would see a direct hit to your budget. But you are growing enough, and this is growing at 1.865% as well. You're growing enough that you can increase your askings little by little every year, which is something that we've worked with the city to manage going forward. So, I don't ask any questions. It's clear as mud, right?
When does it quit?
When does it quit? Doesn't. In my line of work, it does not.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Here's fiscal year 31 to 32 games.
Yeah. Yeah, column number 14 for you on the blue pages, it's all clear.
Okay.
If you do nothing else.
I'm good at that. Couple questions.
Yes.
As far as our debt rate, how does that compare to most of the communities you're involved with?
Right, right. So the majority of the communities your size that we are involved with are sitting at a little bit higher debt capacity ratio, meaning they've got a little bit more borrowed. Again, you're at that 45% mark. I would say some of them with debt capacity remaining, some of them are sitting with capacity remaining of maybe 35 to 40% is on average. Part of what we can chalk that number is a little better for you in these last couple of years, and that's partially due to some growth in your community. I always say it's a good indication on those purple pages to see where you're growing, because those are that's brand new valuation. So although you're rebating taxes back to those folks, that is valuation that's growing in those commercial and residential areas. And from your residential side, there's a lot coming on. You know, these are early numbers of these rebates. So those are housing districts that are just getting started. So I think you're sitting a little bit better than other cities your size in comparison. And I think partially that is you've had very healthy growth rates these last few years, and it looks to be that you have some healthy growth coming up in the future as well.
So our investments over the last few years are going to start
Paying for themselves. That is correct. And that we have another city that has grown substantially, and you have to, as everyone says, spend money to make money sometimes. And just in the same way of doing your business, sometimes you've got to do the improvements ahead of getting the valuation and the growth to come on. And so I think you're starting to see that table turn a little bit, and you're starting to see kind of that benefit or that return.
Maggie, do you have any cities that, I know it'd be tough to do, depends on the size of the city, but you get over 50%?
Yes, we have a few. One of them has grown substantially, and that number, like I said, has really improved. We do have a few. They are some of our smaller cities who maybe don't have the general obligation debt outstanding, which is what counts against your debt capacity, but they have $4 and $5 and $6 million of revenue debt outstanding. And so maybe their property taxes aren't as high, but in the offset, their water and sewer rates are substantially higher than some of the cities that we work with. And so to be really honest, it's very fair across the board. It's really what are you paying not only in property taxes, but also service, utilities every month, because that does play in. And so we do have some that are sitting a little bit better, but not a lot. Yeah.
Thank you, just curious.
Yeah. I think there's always projects that come up. And so, as a council, you have to make that decision, but also there's projects that come up that citizens maybe ask for, things like that. So although a city would like to say, no, we don't have any debt, there's always things that do come up. We understand that. And it is difficult to use your cash reserves, because then that does not leave you any ability to do anything in an emergency situation or pay for those small things that you do not want to go out and borrow for, which we completely understand.
I was happy you pointed out we do our debt service from 5 to 10 years, which has been this council's plan to try to, we're not lowering our debt rate, but we're not increasing it because we're trying to take things off the books as new projects come.
Correct. I think it's important to point out that on those green pages, yes, we're talking about $1.6 million tonight, but you're also gonna pay back $1.2 million in principal in June. And so you're not, again, we're not extending that out where you're only paying $400,000 a year in principal. You're making significant principal payments every year for the debt that you're borrowing.
Any other questions for us? We'll move on to the resolutions. I need a motion.
Maggie, thank you for
I need a motion to approve the resolution awarding general obligation culvert bond series 2019. That was just done this morning, wasn't it?
That is, and I'm passing now this letter out.
What was the rate?
Very, very low. That's the letter you're gonna get. If I may, I'm gonna walk these up to Gina. She has those. So the letter that is coming your way does outline, Larry from our office was here this morning to take bids on the sale of $1,650,000 of general obligation corporate purpose bonds series 2019. As you can see from the letter, we are recommending that you would award to Bankers Bank in Madison, Wisconsin at a true interest rate of 1.9972. The other bids were coming in. I was told that, these are exceptionally good bids, for 12-year bonds that are outstanding. And I was told there was a comment made in the room, gosh, it'd be great to see it under 2%. And then it happened. It just popped up at 1.99 and made everybody's day. So Bankers Bank of Madison has purchased your debt before. They do work locally. They're showing a WCF Financial Bank is what they're showing as local participation. We're always very happy to see when Bankers Bank bids. We also have done some negotiating in the past with you guys with Bankers Bank, and so we are very happy to see that they continue to be good bidders for you. On page 2, it does outline all of the bids that came in. You can see that Bankers Bank bid was at a 1.99, and this is on the far right column. 1.9972%, so over the life of the bond, if you hold it to maturity, you will pay $177,663 in interest. Now, why we like to have competitive bids is exactly shown on this page. We go from a 1.99, and had we chosen UMB and to maybe negotiate with, sometimes they're the winner, sometimes they're not, and today they were at a 2.1915%, and that interest to maturity is $200,000. And so although it's only 19 basis points, which doesn't seem, or 20 basis points, which doesn't seem like a lot, it is about $23,000 in interest difference, and then all that adds up to the bottom line for you folks. But we were very happy with the results, and there were 5 bids received, which we just thought was phenomenal. That was a great showing today. It was a very busy day in the market. This was our 3rd bond sale of the morning, and it was from 10:30 to 11, so we had already had a very busy morning, and these the interest rates track very well with where our other sales came in at today, so we're very happy. The last page is your $1,650,000 debt service schedule, and as you can see, we've drawn a line under 6/1/2026, and that is the call date. So that is the date that the bonds would become callable for a lower interest rate. The bonds could be called in and paid partially. They could be paid in full at that point in time, or if interest rates are higher than 2% at the time, we're just gonna sit there and have you continue to pay the debt as it's outlined. You may be able to make more money on your money in investments at that point in time. So with that being said, I'd answer any questions that you have, but we would recommend that you would award to Bankers Bank of Madison, Wisconsin at 1.9972%.
What determines the call date? Like, is this just halfway through the life of the loan?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So what we are looking at on a 10-year bond, it is halfway plus 1 year. On anything that's 12 to 20 years, you look at just a little under the halfway point. Partially, there was some discussion and some changes. We probably would have put this call feature out. Had we sold these bonds 3 or 4 years ago, the call feature probably would have been after 27. But with tax reform at the federal level, they eliminated advanced refundings. And advanced refundings mean you could call them you could call them before they were callable. You did it with an escrow account, and there was a lot that went with it, but it saved a lot of cities a lot of money through the years. They eliminated that advanced refunding opportunity. So that meant call dates got about a year shorter because the market was like, well, we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to call them in. So I would say our calls have gotten a little bit, but it's a little less than halfway when we get over 10 years. So we just kind of look at where the market is and where we're seeing pricing at. If we do not put a call date in there, you actually get a little penalized because they'll say, well, I mean, you should, be able to provide yourself. The investors are saying you should be able to provide yourself with the opportunity to pay them off, to restructure them if necessary. If we put the call date too short, 3 or 4 years, the investors are also going to penalize you with higher interest rates because this is an investment, they're buying an investment, and they wanna know they're gonna hold on to that investment for a certain amount of time, and not have to rebuy new investments every year or every 2 years, so.
Have you seen more bond sales this quarter?
We have. We have.
Good sign for your county.
We have seen more bond sales, this time, and really from our perspective, some of the issuances we have been talking about, and they just didn't come to fruition because the cities weren't ready. So although, we have a pretty heavy calendar going forward, some of that is because issuances just weren't ready to happen in the spring. But we are also seeing some refundings because we have hit low interest rates that we didn't think we'd have. These interest rates, just so you know, are about 50 basis points lower than where they were in the spring. So had we done the sale in May, although 2.25 and 2.4% would have been great interest rates, they are a little bit lower at this time, which is kind of uncommon for September. But reminder, the Federal Reserve moved twice this year and slashed interest rates twice, 0.25% each time. Although our interest rates don't directly correlate with the Federal Reserve's because those are short-term rates, we do see for their 25 basis points, we usually see 10 to 15 basis points of movement. We were told a couple of weeks ago that they were building in, investors were already building that in, that second rate cut that came last week. So we were feeling pretty good about the sales coming up at the end of September and October, about a week ago, so.
Maybe this is a 10-year bond.
Did I say 12? It goes out till 2030, so 12 years. Yeah, because 28 would be a 10-year. Yeah.
This is for 2020.
Oh, 10, sorry, 2030. Oh, because, I'm sorry, yes, because we're not starting principal until 2021 when you have a levy in place. My apologies, I'm not doing my math tonight, I apologize.
I just wanted
I have
to
to
be sure.
count.
I was thinking we had talked 10 and I had to.
Yes,
double
my
check.
apologies, I take everything back about 12 years.
I was beginning to worry, we talked about our great way of doing 5 to 10. Messed up.
It was me who messed you up tonight, I apologize, so.
That's fine, thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve this resolution?
Move.
Motion by
Second.
Sharp, second by Hill. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Hill,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
O'Loughlin.
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you very much for being here, Maggie.
Thank you all very much, have a good evening.
Next, I have a motion to approve the street financial report and authorize the city clerk to submit it to the Iowa DOT.
So moved.
Motion by Sharp,
Second.
second by Kurtz. Need a roll call?
Yes,
Roll call, please.
Sharp,
Yes.
O'Loughlin.
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next, we are down to motion to approve a resolution authorizing acceptance of real property from Steve G.
This is a real estate gifting agreement, Mr. G has signed, offering the city a parcel of land that is a former railroad bed, running from Land Boulevard south to the property that he has just purchased.
I'd make a motion to approve this.
That's the purple on our,
It's the purple that's highlighted on the map, that's correct.
Motion by Kurtz,
second by O'Loughlin.
second by Laughlin, sorry to hear that. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Yes. O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
No.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
yes.
Sharp,
No.
Motion is carried. Next is on the agenda is a motion to receive an access easement for identified property from Steve G.
The gifting agreement will take about 30 days to complete because it is a real estate transaction. We had discussed the possibility of putting a culvert in, using some of the fill that Mr. Sheretz has secured for the city. And in visiting with the city attorney's office, the safest, most practical way to do this is with an easement. The easement is temporary and really only runs from the time that we approve it to when we take access to the property. This would allow us to take the in-kind service of clearing and grubbing of the trees, as well as putting the culvert and filter in. But the easement would give us that access.
I'd just like to state to my constituency, in the third ward, those who had concerns about this project over the Sixth Avenue Trail project. This is of no cost to the city. The culvert is paid for. The work being done is in kind, as stated by Mr. Roder, and the filter is free.
Who's gonna maintain it, Mike?
Pardon?
Who's gonna maintain it?
Well, for right now, it's just to be done.
But it's gonna be maintained, who's gonna mow it, who's gonna push the snow?
Well, this is not a, I wanna emphasize, this is not a trail that we're installing. All we're doing is filling, and we're gonna get to that on the next one. This easement gives us access to go in there and clear it, do the work, so we can put the filter in there. As far as maintenance, it hasn't had much maintenance over the last number of years.
That ain't no kidding, I seen a jackrabbit in there the other day, is that tall?
I believe.
Is the filter already or there's some more filter out there that will move directly there?
Well, they've moved less than half of the filter that we have available, from my understanding.
When we talk about that culvert, are we talking on this diagram or picture we have about installing about where the green and gray meet? I'm looking at previous. I'm just wondering how far up from Bland do we go to put this culvert in?
It's about a third of the way south on the diagram that you have there.
It's probably gonna be more feasible to bring the trucks in from the south than from the north to put the film in for them.
It could be, either.
I walked in, so I mean, I'm just
Yeah,
estimating.
no, I mean, either way you look at it, it has to be cleared and grubbed, and that's a,
You walked that trail, Mike? How'd you get through it?
Just climbing over, under, through.
Wow. None in the cast or anything?
No.
It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, isn't it?
it really is.
Yeah.
Well, my concerns, my constituents, we know we're getting aggressive on this, but we're not doing anything like doing our Sixth Avenue where we need to be doing something. We're just gonna, what's gonna happen is, we're gonna go, okay, now shovel ready, we're gonna come up with matches, grant, and we're gonna do an artery before we get to Hart.
The issue.
Can you assure me that won't happen?
The issue between this area and, talking about Sixth Avenue.
Correct.
Is, when is the land, the property available? We are also working, if you recall from our committee of the whole meeting, with a property owner on Sixth Avenue to secure property to help facilitate, again,
Sure.
building blocks for a trail.
Sure.
The reason that's not here yet is because I don't meet with the property owner until tomorrow evening. We've had the discussion, we're taking the liberty of surveying the property line so we know where it's at. And again, trying to build into it as we go along. The funding sources for these two different trails are two different sources. What works adjacent to a street or a highway is different than what it works for a freestanding trail across the field. And I'm not going to assure you which one of those funding sources comes about first. I don't know that, but at this point, I don't have either one. That part I do know.
No, I understand that. Just that, I've seen it just happen, so this one already is going in, and you kind of feel obligated to go ahead and do this one before we get the one that, I'm not saying, they're both needed, don't misunderstand me. But Sixth Avenue, that to me is not just a leisure trail, it's a necessity.
Well, and I wanna remind you that we are programming and going back to, the RTA, requesting phase 2 of the Enterprise Drive Sixth Avenue Trail. We did the first half, that was funded. We, as recently as last week, we reminded them we're coming back. we need those funds, it's a match fund, it worked very well for Highway one fifty South Trail. Phase two is still sitting there, and,
Phase two would take us to the driveways at the south end of Olds Edition.
it connects to the sidewalk in the south end of Old subdivision. Pretty straightforward, except for the Walmart easement.
Yeah.
And then there's a ditch where we have to build a bridge or a culvert to cross. That brings us all the way up to Lover's Lane. So the question that you have is really, how do we get from Lover's Lane to Bland Boulevard, moving up Super? And, you know, we're having conversation, one of the pieces is how do we get that landing spot or that corner there at Bland and Sixth and secure that? And we're working on that currently. We brought them both along simultaneously, but they're only building blocks. We're not bringing you a trail proposal at this point. We're just trying to put the pieces in place so we can build it.
My thing is with Sixth Avenue, like Carl, I'm glad this other trail's coming through with in-kind funding and free filter, things like that, because I won't vote to match any funds on that trail until we've allocated resources for Sixth.
And when we get into the budget process, if the trail from Lover's Lane to Bland is our priority, we'll need to build in there, you know, the design and engineering and get that trail ready so we can fund it. The engineering cost is the next big step for whatever we do. And obviously a little bit more complex along Sixth Avenue because of the geometry of the right of way along there.
And for DNR, I spoke with them, and they have concerns about the weights.
Do we have grant applications or applications for funding for either of these at this point?
We have nothing out there or active right now for either one.
So when would we put the Sixth Avenue, I mean, when would that application go?
If we put that in through the RTA, through that program, the earliest we would be able to put it in would be 2021, and that puts it into the 4-year cycle. That doesn't mean, I mean, frequently those will move up faster if somebody drops out or somebody who's in the queue decides to push that project back or it's not ready, but.
So we wouldn't even put an application in for funding till 2021?
Correct. 2020, March of 2020 is the target date for phase 2 of the Enterprise Drive 6th Avenue Trail.
Do we have an application in for that date now?
We have the application pretty much ready to go, but it is not in there right now. They take applications once a year. We approached the RTA last year. There was 2 trail projects for this specific fund that were out there, ours and then the Rolling Prairie Trail in Waverly. Theirs has been out there about a dozen years. They opted to put all of the money into that to finish that trail versus doing half and half of what was available for funds. And that makes sense. We had the last large grant coming for that Highway 150 trail. So it's, again, playing nice in the sandbox and helping them out where we can. Ours is still there and they know it's an active trail. They know it's ready to go.
Now, we talked at one time, when we say trail, we're talking the 8-foot pavement.
A trail is by DOT standards a 10-foot width. We can get an exception down to 8 feet, which we've done for a number of reasons on both Highway 150 and on First Street West. But to be eligible for the funding, it has to be 10 feet unless you get the exception, which then it can come down to 8 feet. Then they have the 2-foot granular shoulders on either side.
Whether it's 10 foot or 8 foot.
I'm sorry, whether it's 10 foot or 8 foot, you have to have the 2-foot shoulder on it, that's correct.
Cost-wise, time-wise, obviously in front of Olds Edition, they've got a regular sidewalk width.
That's correct.
So we would, I mean, I bite my tongue to say this, but would it cost less to put a regular width sidewalk in?
It would cost less, but it's not eligible for any outside funding. I mean, if you're going to go straight sidewalk, that's an option that you have, but there is no funding available to do that.
Okay, I'll say you didn't have any funding, but we cut it to 4, whatever, I think it's regulation.
5. Well, generally we go 5.
Okay, but I guess my question would be, depending on what we go for a grant, we'd have to match that anyway.
That's correct.
So, I know you can't shuffle numbers around tonight, I know, I understand that. But if we could get an estimation, say, my thing is, there's a lot of people out there, and that safety, I don't care if it's 5 feet to 8 feet or whatever, they get them off the road. I think we maybe need to look into that.
Are you talking about the Enterprise Drive to Sixth, or from Sixth, or from Lover's Lane up to Bland?
From Lover's Lane to Bland.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, I think that's something we can look at, I wouldn't even guess at what the cost difference would be, obviously.
But I'm just looking at the safety factor.
Well, you have a couple different issues that play into that stretch in particular, because the ditch on both sides drop off so quickly. You have an issue with the constructability of that, and the cost growing as you go out there to that extra 8 foot and the shoulders that go with it, versus a 5 foot sidewalk. I think it's worth looking at as we move ahead. The one issue I have is that, and I can't bring it to you right now because we do not have the money built in to do the engineering and design. And it's not about dragging our feet, it's, engineers are funny that way, they wanna get paid. And, so to be fair, if we're going to do that, that has to be one of the priorities that the council would carry through the budget process. And I think that's legit. And it's something we can look at, we can proceed with. But I think you have to build it into your work plan, you know, as we go along.
Well, I guess if we don't start talking about it, it's one of those things that it won't get done.
Right.
That's why we're addressing it now, what my concerns are. I see a lot of people down here and I get calls all the time. Thank goodness nobody's had an issue or problem, but, see, I guess my concern is listen to my constituents. They wanna see these arteries, but they wanna see the heart first. Let the heart pump, and then let the arteries. And I'm not against trails, I'm not. But I'm for the ones that need to be safe first, instead of just leisure. Not that one, that other could be used for getting around too, I don't mean it that way. But this one down 6 definitely is more than just leisure.
Well, I don't think anybody's gonna disagree with that, and, you know, the issue that I have is I can bring to you these pieces right now because of the affordability of it. It fits in our budget this year for where we're at today. I can't bring a design and you know, some of these other things, which are valid questions. I think we just have to take it a step at a time. So, I would caution you in getting caught up in the one or the other. This is not being presented to you or couched in a way that you have to pick one over the other, because right now they're both going to basically cost you the same. You know, we're putting the pieces into place that we can afford today.
But there's a finite number of dollars, so if you spend money on one, it could preclude spending on the other.
As you're building them, I agree. You know, and my emphasis is we're not building them today, and I wanna be really clear, we're not asking you to build them today. But we do need the easement to proceed with this until such time as we take ownership.
I'll make a motion on the easement.
I'll second it.
Motion by Hill, second by. Roll call, please.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
No.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Shar,
No.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. And we are down to motion to authorize the removal of trees, installation of culvert and fill on the future Liberty Trail extension.
To be fair, I've broken this whole conversation into 3 separate motions. The gifting agreement, the easement, but to be, again, for the council's sake, to make sure that you're aware of what we're doing step by step. This is actually allowing us to go out, secure the culvert, move the fill in there, do those things that are going to address the.
Are we purchasing the culvert?
We will have to purchase the culvert. We'll receive the gift, if you will, from the Trails Committee for half of it up front now and the other half as they raise it. We also received the gift of that in-kind service for the rubbing of the trees. As far as the fill goes, we already have that as a gift, if you will. And, so.
Who's actually installing the culvert?
We will have to either have our crew do it or have the contractor do it. Because, I mean, it obviously has to be.
Is that's
I thought the county
above
was gonna be involved in that.
They may be, at this point, I haven't had the council's blessing to go out and negotiate that, so I have not started that conversation. And this would really give us the ability to have that conversation.
So at this point, we're talking about a $7,000 bridge loan until the Trails Committee, but is our cost $7,000, or are we going to have another $2,000, $3,000 to install it?
That depends on the conversation with the county, and I've been told that the county was going to help us, but again, I have not confirmed that. I'm not going to go out and have that conversation because at this point, I don't have any place to put it. So I have not had the conversation with the county.
So do we know what it could cost us above the $14,000?
I cannot tell you if there is or is not a cost above that at this point.
We don't have a ballpark?
I do not. Again, I have not had a conversation with the county to confirm. At one time, there was discussion about whether they might participate with us in putting the culvert in. But we don't have a project, so no, I have not had that conversation.
Does our staff, city staff, have the ability to put this in?
I think we have the ability to put it in. We want to obviously have, you know, Crawford or somebody make sure that we have the right specs for putting it in. But, could there be a cost for installation? Yes, sir.
So we could have some engineering costs plus installation costs?
That's correct.
So we're kind of voting on an unknown fee.
Well, we can bring it back to you with the fee if you would like us to do that, but at this point, I don't have the permission from the council. And with where we've been with the trail previously and where we're going, again, we're being very careful to bring it to you a piece at a time, and that's what I have. And I have not started those conversations in and out of the council.
I would make a motion.
Call it a pig and Coke.
I'd make a motion, we table this until we have more information on the cost, otherwise cost.
I second.
So we've done the important parts of getting the land, the gifting to us, and the easement. So now we can take a look at total cost potential for this.
Right. And you
Without
have,
endangering the easement or the gifting.
that's correct. And I guess I would ask for you to consider, as opposed to tabling it, giving us the authorization to go out and put this together and bring you let's call it project cost back to you. But I don't wanna be in front of the council doing something that isn't agreed to, that we're looking at. We have some
While
dissension
we're
on
in
this.
discussions, could we modify the motion to where we give them the ability to get that cleared, since it's gonna be in kind, donated?
You already made the motion, John.
Because
I second.
that's gonna make a big difference on installing if you've got.
I mean, if you've got willingness to clear that at no cost to the city, I think we ought to let them go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And we can work on the details of this culvert thing
As we get
get
actual
information.
price, yeah.
I would agree with that.
That way, we're not going out after something we don't know what it's gonna cost us. We already know that this is a no cost to the city. I think we should.
But if we do this, are we wanting this done before winter?
It's only September, it won't take that long to knock that out.
Do we want what done before?
We want this culvert put in before winter.
Well, if the council is willing to put the culvert in, we wanna do it as soon as we can while the dirt or the fill is available and somebody else is hauling it. If we have to move it from where they're hauling it to up here, there's a cost to us. But how much time do we have? It's pretty wet out there today, I know they haven't hauled in a week, and there'll be another few days before they can do anything anyway, so I'm fine with that. My concern is not getting in front of where the council is on doing this step by step, going through this. So as opposed to tabling it, authorizing us to have the tree grubbing done is fantastic. And if you authorize us to put together the project cost to put the culvert in, that's fine, but I do want the council's permission, formal permission to do that.
So we need to withdraw the motion, or?
I'd modify my motion to reflect those contingencies, the grubbing, continuation, fulfillment of in-kind grubbing, and the cost of placing the culvert and any additional costs associated with it.
Rather than tabling it up.
Correct.
Is that okay with you?
I would second that.
Well, Danny already did.
We don't follow anything.
Do you?
Don't worry about it. Don't
I'm
worry.
looking right at you, Denny, do you agree with your second to what his,
Well,
changing his?
I'd beat John on a good second there, wouldn't it?
I'm
That's
waiting
all
for
right.
you, you second his original one, he's
I
modified.
seconded the first.
Let me finish my conversation. His original one was a table, you second that, he's adjusted his original one instead of tabling it to allow these to happen. Since you seconded that, do you want to adjust your second also?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I asked.
It really probably isn't gonna cost us the 14,000, because the Trails Association
It will not cost
pretty
us
much
the
gonna
14.
step up.
Right, but it won't cost us the 14,000.
Up front it will, right?
We'll buy it, I mean, the transaction between us and the county will take place because we're government entities. So the donation to the city to cover those costs is how do we get it paid for?
Just so the community realizes that we're not gonna probably have to eat that cost.
No, that's correct.
And I'm not worried about the 14,000, I just,
Above and beyond that.
above and beyond that.
That,
You wanna read back what your motion actually was?
The motion on the floor is to authorize the removal of trees and to authorize the staff to bring back the project cost for installation of culvert.
Okay,
So it's authorizing it to do it right now?
Just removal of the trees.
they're authorizing to
You're
remove
gonna
the
do that for free.
trees, removal of trees, and for the state.
Sometimes you can't take it, it costs too much. This could be one.
Do you understand what?
Oh, I understand,
Okay.
yeah. Want me to vote now?
You're first actually. Vaughn.
No,
Roll call.
no.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Hayward.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Sharp.
Yes.
O'Loughlin.
Yes.
Hannah.
yes.
Thank you, motion is carried.
So we're not spending money till you give us a full estimate, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the other ones that is in kind agreement. Okay. Next on the thing is a motion to hold public hearing in regards to home occupation permit application for the planner.
And make a motion to hold the hearing.
Motion by Kurt, second by Sharp, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. So we are now in hearing in regards to home occupation permit. Julie is here if you have any questions that was not
Gina, do we have
addressed
any,
with her that attachments.
do we have any correspondence other than what's on the?
What's attached is what I received.
Make a motion to approve it.
Well,
Excuse me, yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're in
We're in
hearing,
hearing.
we're in hearing.
Well, excuse me, the sound was.
Any concerns about parking?
Yes. Is there anybody out there?
There probably won't be much more than one person there at a time, will there?
No one else, and you didn't get any additional things other than what was on here?
Correct.
Any other discussion that I would ask for a motion to close the hearing, receive and file oral and written comments?
So move.
Motion by Hill, second by Kurtz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Now I need a motion to approve a home occupation permit for Julie Clymer.
So moved.
Motion by Sharp,
Second.
second by Denny. Roll
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next on the agenda, I need a motion to set the date of public hearing for October 14, 2019 at 6:30 PM in City Hall Council Chambers for an amendment to the one-way traffic, section 68.01, one-way traffic required.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf,
Second.
second by Kurtz. Discussion.
Is this all done by the river area, all these ones?
So this is, coming out of First Street adjacent to Kidsville, where that new trail is. This is that one block stretch that we had talked about.
Right.
Basically, it's an alley.
Yeah.
That's where GNL one Rangers is.
Exactly.
Or JS.
And if you drive through there, you'll see that the north to south traffic pattern is the only one that really makes sense coming through there as well.
So we're just adding one, it was a little different, it said we're throwing out
Well, and this is actually just for us to have the public
the, I
hearing.
know,
We're
but
not-
it said in here that we were something doing away with the,
Chip, it's a one-way going south now, or one that's
We're modifying, currently it's a two-way street. What we're adding, under this, chapter 68 of the ordinance, we're adding number 7. There are 6 one-way streets identified in that section of the code. This just adds one more line that says 10th Avenue Southwest shall be southbound from First Street Southwest to Second Street Southwest. That's what you're voting on, is that ordinance.
There's just that stretch there.
Right.
and that's what people want to
And
come
you're
out.
actually voting on having a public hearing to that degree, so this actually will be on the next council meeting for a public hearing.
Correct.
Do you have a motion and a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion is carried. Next is a motion to set the date of public hearing for October 14, 2019 at 6:30 PM in City Council Chambers for an amendment to the zoning ordinance.
This is a rezoning request by Steve G. for property that he has purchased so he can continue the housing development that he's started there along the lines.
So moved. To go from agricultural to residential, is that what it is?
That's correct.
Second.
He owns
Motion
the
by
land
Hill,
anyway, right?
second by O'Loughlin. Any other discussion on this one? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. We have another one. And I also need a motion to set the date of public hearing for October 14, 2019 at 6:30 PM in City Hall, Council Chambers for amendment to the zoning ordinance in regards to Henderson's, regards to the former Monsanto property.
So moved.
Motion by Hill,
Second.
second by Scharf. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion is carried. And we're down to other business. And George actually got here a long time ago, but has been patient. We did put you at the end as you requested.
Good evening. I'm here to pay my debt to society. So, about a month ago, I was up here for a meeting with Al and Deb Hanna and a few others, and I was late, and Deb pointed out to me that people who are late, they have to bring donuts. So, boys and girls, I brought donuts because I was late. Choose to eat one now or eat one later.
Were these purchased the day you were late or today?
Hey, George, I'm not over
See, Danny, I did
$2.99
think
a piece,
of
are
you.
they?
What's that?
They're not over $2.99 a piece, are they?
Quick start, when they're on sale, I take advantage of them. But you notice, I'm an equal opportunity person. The napkins are from Casey's.
Thanks, George, for listening.
Occasionally, yeah, I do. Don't expect it on a regular basis. Anyway, I'm George Lake, Director of Buchanan County Economic Development, and 2 or 3 times a year, I try to get out to each of the city councils to provide an update on activities, what's going on within the county, Earlier tonight, I was up in Fairbank. At least there's not a blizzard. The last time I was in here, it was rather interesting travel. Anyway, just very briefly, Buchanan County Economic Development, we are mainly supported by financial contributions from the cities. Banks and utilities also provide some support. About 4 years ago, my board and I, during our strategic planning, we recognized that we needed to do a better job of reaching out to the world through the internet, communications in general. I really enjoy doing those kind of things. My degree is in marketing, and I taught English. I love writing. I like to talk. I'll try to keep it short. But anyway, our board agreed that we need to expand our services. And so what we did, we reached out to businesses in Buchanan County and asked for a 3-year commitment. And so we did, and we got 49 businesses that agreed to become investors in Buchanan County Economic Development. When we went out to them, we said, here's our promise to you. This is what we intend to do with the funds that you provided for us. And first and foremost was to hire a part-time communications manager. And that we did. And Lisa Kramer was hired, and it's her job to take care of all the aspects of communication, writing press releases and things of that nature. And I'll just turn the mic over to Lisa, let her give a short introduction to herself and what she does during the daylight when she's not waking me up from my naps.
I'll try to be real short here, but as George said, I'm Lisa Kramer. I'm the communication manager for Buchanan County Economic Development. And a big part of my job is to make sure that we're communicating to not only local people, people within the region, people within the state, and the nation as far as what Buchanan County is doing and what we have to offer in economic development. So I'm in charge of doing our Facebook, our Twitter, also our website is a big part of my job, making sure that it is up to date, is visually something that you want to be involved in, work with the website, and see what there is within the county and within our economic development program. Also, something that I do is on a monthly basis, we do a newsletter, and that newsletter, as I said, goes out to over 900 people, or it says right here. And part of those that receive the newsletter are site selectors. Site selectors are those people that are looking to locate a business within an area anywhere within the nation. And to go along with what site selectors are, I maintain what is called the LOIS website. Any building or site within Buchanan County that is available to either rent or purchase for economic development is on this site. And it was kind of neat. We were at the state's annual economic development, and we got a shout out at that. Nothing prompted by us, that we had one of the best LOIS sites available. Something that's very easy to navigate. We have the most information available on it, and something that kind of nice to get that little extra shout out. Also, I touched on the newsletter. I do press releases, and that is just part of some of the things that I do with my position at Economic Development. Do you have any questions as to what I do? You do a very good job. Well, thank you.
I spent 3 days with her in Dubuque a month ago, and it was very educational.
It was a very good conference, yes. Right. Thank you. I'll turn it
Thanks,
back over to
Lisa.
George.
Okay, folks, if you look at this sheet here that you were given earlier, I'm not going to go over this in great detail because there is a lot of information. But 3 years ago, when we did our capital campaign to businesses, we made promises that we would pursue certain aspects to create and develop a good environment for growth in Buchanan County. And our board came up with several strategic aspects that they wanted to focus on. First and foremost is the existing businesses. We already have a lot of good businesses here in Buchanan County. I'm gonna touch on them towards the end of this a little bit more so. But first and foremost, we need to support our existing businesses. And the number one way that we can do that is workforce issues. Unemployment rate in Buchanan County is about 2.2%. It's a really tight market. So there is no magic bullet. You know, I can't wake up in the morning and make one thing happen and everything's gonna be rosy. But there are things that we can put in place to create an environment that growth will take place. And there are several things listed there that we do. You know, first and foremost, we have career fair. We're working with schools in Buchanan County to create an apprenticeship program so that kids are introduced to the trades and skilled trades as early as 8th grade. We have a job site, which we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 jobs that are posted on there. It's a regional job site that folks can get on board. If you want to flip your sheet over, another thing that we focus on is, yes, we want to bring and attract new business in Buchanan County. And some ways that we do that is grow our own. The Small Business Development Center comes into my office once a month. And in the last 3 years, we've had over 40 businesses come into my office to meet with the Small Business Development Center. Some of these are established businesses. Some are people that they're thinking, gosh, I've always wanted to open up a cigar shop. And that was a legitimate question that came in. And folks come in, they meet with the Small Business Development Center with Lisa and myself, and we try to help them grow. And we do try and attract new businesses into the county. And you say, George, you just said the unemployment rate's 2.2%. We have over 225 high school graduates that graduate from our county high schools every year. Businesses that we're focusing on are high technology companies that deal with robotics, trying to attract companies into Buchanan County that do not presently exist here. I love embarrassing my kids. I'll embarrass my kids. I mean, my son's looking at moving to Georgia. One of my daughters moving up to the Twin Cities. Another one of my daughters is studying anthropology. She's going to end up in the Maya ruins for the rest of her life. So unless we can attract Mayan ruins to move to Buchanan County, I won't see my daughter very often again. But we do try and attract new businesses into the county so that we can keep our young people here and attract different new people here into Buchanan County. And we certainly market ourselves in encouraging new housing. I think you're all aware that we did a countywide housing assessment 2 years ago. Independence has seen the benefits of that. Literally, the day after I published that we had our housing needs assessment, that's when Echo Development of Cedar Falls got a hold of me and they said, I want to come over and see what you've got in Independence. 48 new apartments are being constructed as we speak, and there's possibility of others. Skogman putting up a 14-unit single-family housing development. They came here because of the study showing that we need that. Over in Jessup, there's 2 new housing developments going on over in Jessup. Same thing. In Fairbank and Winthrop, there are also new housing developments that are in the mix. So if we can build the houses that can keep people here and attract people, it will help our county as a whole. Now the next sheet, if you want to look at this, and once again, I'm not going to go over lots of things, but these are some of the upcoming and active activities that we've got going on. Lisa Kramer, she really deserves a lot of credit. She just finished up a new section on her website. It's called 60 Minutes to Everything. And this is a quality of life factor that we're addressing. We are saying that you can live in Buchanan County and literally within 60 minutes you can be to almost everything that you want to do. You know, live in Independence, live in Fairbank, live in Raleigh or Kewaskum or Brandon, and within 60 minutes of driving you can do almost anything that you'd like to do. And on your picture I put a listing of the college sports teams. thank God for Paul is here and college football is here. You know, within 60 minutes, there are 2 Division I athletic programs that folks that like college sports can attend. And within 60 minutes, we have 6 or 7 performing arts theaters that you can attend. You know, Gallagher Bluedorn is the closest to us. Within 60 minutes, there are 11 breweries. I'm a home brewer. I like my beer and live in Buchanan County, and within 60 minutes, you can visit 11 breweries. Hopefully not all at the same time. But that kind of factor. Now, why is this important? I'll use Gator Manufacturing. Gator Manufacturing is recruiting people literally from around the world to come to Independence. And by having something like this, you can say, you know, move to Independence, and they'll say, what, this little tiny rural town? And live here. We've got great schools. It's a nice, safe community. We're gonna have more bike trails. It's a great place to live. And within 60 minutes, you can do almost anything you'd like to do. So that's what we've got going on with that. And gosh, I've got so much stuff here. Anyway, look at all this. If you look down towards the bottom, we are presenting a historic preservation workshop in association with the Independence Chamber and Buchanan County Historical Society. Last time we were offering this, it was in February. Needless to say, that was canceled. But we had over 35 people attending, some from as far away as Des Moines. So this is being promoted. So if you have a house that you want to put on the historic registry or a business, this workshop will tell you how to do that. And flip this over. Once again, there's a lot of other stuff. We are pursuing the establishment of a sister city-state for Buchanan County, where we're reaching out and we'll form a relationship with a country or city or community in a foreign country. And we're trying to establish for economic purposes, social purposes, and cultural purposes and interaction. And we're moving forward with that. The last thing, if you look down at the bottom, I've got this nice big sheet, and I talked about existing businesses. This is information from the Iowa Workforce Development, and they got it from the National Department of Labor. Since 2011, there's been sizable business growth in Buchanan County, but the one I want to focus on is since 2011, there's been 510 new manufacturing jobs in Buchanan County. 510. That's a 50% growth rate since 2011. Now you say, why is that important? Well, a couple reasons. One, it shows that Buchanan County, we're thriving here. Manufacturing jobs are among the highest paid wages in the country. So with 510 new manufacturing jobs, that should mean that there are more people willing to buy homes, move into new apartments, put their kids in schools near where they're working. It's a huge positive impact on Buchanan County. Once again, review all this stuff. It's good information. We're doing well in Buchanan County. You know, it's not perfect. Some people are struggling. There's no doubt about that. Some businesses are struggling. So overall, things are looking pretty good. Okay, I didn't bring any more donuts. I see that they've all disappeared. Anyway, any questions or comments?
Get the highlights of this, George, right? Get the highlights of this.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, there's also information on the Community Development Block Grant. I've been visiting with Deb and with Al and the mayor about this. You know, a year ago, we looked at the possibility of doing Community Development Block Grant facade program. And just very briefly, what this is a $500,000 grant from the state of Iowa for improvement of the facades of downtown business district. Theoretically, the city would match that with 25% or 25% match, and the building owner would provide a 25% match. And so what this is, it's a great program. Lisa Kramer and I, we did a door-to-door of as many of the building owners that we could find up and down Main Street. And there's only one building owner who said that they would not be interested in pursuing this to fix up their building. Now, there's been a little bit of a change in this, that usually the grant application is due in, like February, early March. Money's been delayed from HUD, and so you may not start accepting applications until June. But on here, I listed the process that will be followed if you want to pursue that. One of the things is that before you apply for the grant, the city would have to pay for an architect to come in and do a review of the downtown business district. Once that is done, then you've got the ammunition you need to apply for the grant. So anyway, something to keep on your plate. I know the last time you looked at it, and considering all the street work that you're doing, you felt that the city could not afford it at that time, and I would probably agree with that. Revisit it if you
So
want to.
it's just time to keep track of this when we do our budget, see if it's something we can possibly
Yeah.
do.
It's well worth it when you figure that, for the building owner, they're going to get for 25% of the cost of fixing up the facade. They pay 25%, the state pays 50%, and the city would pay 50%. Property taxes go up.
City pays 25.
Pardon?
City pays 25.
Yes, 25% of the cost. So if there's let's say $10,000, fixing up on a building, the state would pay $5,000, the building owner would pay $2,500, and the city would pay $2,500. It's a great program.
I think when we looked into this last time, the biggest stumbling block was the architectural cost had to be paid up front by the city.
Well, we
That was-
don't really know what that would be, and one thing, when I was in Marion, we did this. And how Marion did it was that for the architectural cost, for the buildings that were going to be participating, they paid half the cost of the architectural cost, so that the city was able to recoup half of those dollars. And what that also does, if the building owner has to pay, part of the architectural cost, you're going to get people that are seriously concerned about signing up. Because in some communities, buildings will sign up saying, yeah, I wanna do this, and then when the project gets initiated, they back out. And so by having half the architectural cost paid by the building owner, you're gonna get people that have skin in the game at the very beginning. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, George.
Thanks, George.
What you do. Appreciate it.
Okay, we're down to reports. Was there any committee meetings since last meeting? Anything else? Staff members.
Only a couple things. On Saturday this last weekend, we had our canine fundraiser. We had a really good turnout for that. I say we had, I think I started at 8 o'clock in the morning and roughly done about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, but we had a really good turnout. The list that you guys approved for auction from talking to Emmett, looks like I'll talk to him tomorrow, but to specifically set the date and time, it looks like we're thinking of October 16th at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to Wednesday. So other than that, we've just been working on our own patrol, also our detour route that we've had. Hopefully this is the last week that we have a bunch of issues with the detour. Hopefully we'll get on tape soon, so. I've had officers, a couple of extra shifts for officers out for that detour route so that we would avoid accidents causing issues. So they really enjoyed coming out and working also. It's been a good thing.
I know we had a listing of all the bicycles and such going on. We're gonna be getting rid of a lot of that, stuff from the theft.
That's most of the stuff that's on there. The first 3/4 of the pages is that, so. The bicycles that were there are ones that have been collected over the years. We won't do any for this year or last year, but any years prior to that that have not been cleaned or whatever, that are abandoned with no owners, then yeah, those are on there. So. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Other city staff?
Just draw your attention to the attachment under the, staff and report, or other section, that kind of gives you an update on where we're at with the AFR system for our annual, financial report that we will have to submit to the state. That's all.
Al, do you have anything additional?
I have a couple of items. One is on October 10th, the Healthy Hometown meeting is at Buchanan County Health Center. beginning at 10 o'clock. They do ask for elected official participation if you can be there. I did copy you on some information that came out last week concerning a news story that came out concerning ICAP, and I have been working with both the league office and the folks at ICAP to share our concerns with that and see if there's a way that we can help them help themselves, because we are an ICAP member.
I'd like to hold our city strategic meeting at one of those locations.
Yeah.
No.
See, I'm already practicing. And the other issue is tomorrow, there is a progress meeting at 10 o'clock for the street project and 2 o'clock for the bridge. I just got that information this afternoon, so here at City Hall for both of those meetings.
Al, when was one at the health center?
October 10th.
Will we get an email reminder on that one?
Yes, I sure can. I'm sorry, that's at 9 o'clock on the 10th. But yes, I have more information for you too. And for those of you that are going to Dubuque, I did send out an email for rides. Everybody here will be leaving at 10:30 on Wednesday. In the, we'll leave them in the parking lot back here.
Okay, council members, anybody have something they would like to share?
I just had one thing that's not really city related, but I've had quite a few calls about the recycling center.
The last government performance finance committee meeting, we discussed the recycling center and the proposal of the county to close it. I did call to try and set up a meeting with the county and waste management. Too little, too late. The decision had been made to close the gate. The only access to it is through the main entrance to waste management during their standard hours. I believe that's 8 to 4:30. But that's the only time it's open.
So do you know if I pull up there and have stuff to drop off because I live in the city, I can't do it, or I can do it, there's a fee, or?
I'm not aware of a fee. I'm not aware that it's being limited to exclude city residents at this point. It's just a matter of you have to go through the waste management gate to get to it.
Okay.
And for those that are not aware, it's because of the excessive amount of trash and garbage that was put in there and the amount of money it was costing the county to dispose of it.
But they had a
It was
camera
abused.
right up there, didn't they?
I offered that suggestion, I asked the question, but I don't know if it's a working camera or.
See, there was some type of camera over the state for real.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, the decision has been made. I guess I have to understand, I have to say, we understand why they made that decision, but it's a loss for the city.
Yeah, it is.
Is there any opportunity that the city could get a service put together?
It's something we can discuss. We've talked about this in passing a couple of
Awfully
times.
close to deliberation. It just gives me the willies.
He's nervous.
I'm nervous that you're getting awfully close. to
Conversation starter.
deliberating on items that weren't on the public agenda, so.
Right, this is just a share idea.
Share ideas and share your announcements, but we can put those things on the agenda if we get to.
How come you hit him and woke him up?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
It's his fault. He prompted me.
That's good, so we don't get in trouble.
Okay, is there anybody else that has
I had two
anything they
residents
wanted
call
to
me.
share?
Two residents called and asked questions about why the city charges franchise fee on their, city bill, whether it's the cable or internet.
The city has a franchise fee for telecommunications, gas, and
Do you
electric.
wonder why residents should bill for that?
it's for use of people or for agencies other than independents like Empower, for the electricity, but, for use of the city's right of way and maintenance of the right of way that goes with that, as allowed by state code. And it's fairly standard, we're not unique in that area, but that's what it's.
It's a revenue source for us.
Sure, but I just wanted it to be, because I got 2 calls, which means if by this time next week, I could have had 4 calls.
That's been out there for, well, on the telecommunications, that's been out there for quite a while. You know, cable and telephone, that's been out there for several years.
Some of these people have just moved into Independence, for example, the G Edition, so they're not familiar with our billing and with the costs associated with ours, so I have no questions, so I thought, what a good forum to open it up and get it up.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to take a minute and recognize, passing James Connell, our former airport manager for 40-some years. He left a real legacy and will be missed.
Let's try to make a turnout and show up for him.
And what is the service schedule, Fridays, the visitation?
Friday's
Saturday?
visitation, Saturday